Frientimacy, How to Deepen Friendships for Lifelong Health and Happiness. Shasta Nelson. Before you start, we have a gift for you. Frientimacy Gift Pack includes the Frientimacy Workbook to help you reflect on and practice the concepts in this book, the Frientimacy Quiz, which you can take both before and after reading the book. Find out how much your frientimacy increases. 2 different book club guides, Frientimacy 1X for groups meeting once, or Frientimacy 4X for groups meeting just once or 4 times. Download your free copy at frientimacy.com. It seems impossible to love people who hurt and disappoint us, yet there are no other kinds of people. Frank Andrews, author of The Art and Practice of Loving. Introduction. Chances are high that you have an intimacy gap in your life. I'm not referring to the intimacy of a romantic relationship, but rather the lack of depth many of us feel in our friendship intimacy, or frientimacy. That is, a gap between the kind of friendships you want to have and the ones you do have. This isn't to say your friends aren't great people, or that you're not a great friend. This is to say that, if you're like most people, something in you knows that you have the capacity to both give and receive far more support, love, and intimacy than you currently enjoy. This is because we're social beings. We don't just thrive on feeling emotionally connected to others. Research shows that we're wired to connect with others, that we actually function best when we feel we are woven tightly into relationships. Unfortunately, too often in this day and age, we feel less connected than we'd like, no matter how many social media friends or connections we have. Here are some ways that many women have expressed this desire. I am over being networked. I just want a few close friends. I am ready for comfortable. I have a social life, but that's different than feeling really connected. I just want to feel like I belong. I long for more relaxed time to connect with the people I love. I prefer deep. I want friends I believe in and admire. I want to feel accepted. I want to know that someone is there for me. I want to laugh and tell secrets with someone I trust. I wish I had a tribe. I'd give anything to be surrounded by friends, really, really good friends. If just one of the lines above speaks to you, then know that what you want is very human. It's the bravest, healthiest, and most loving among us who will admit our desire for greater frientimacy. Know, too, that you're not alone. I believe we live in a world where the need is nearly universal. Our sense of disconnection is far more cultural than it is circumstantial, more widespread than it is personal. The good news is, we can work to close this gap. In so doing, we will not only invite more intimacy into our lives, we will actually deepen our lives. This is because healthy, vibrant relationships help us to develop and actualize the joy, meaning, and peace that we crave. The chapters to follow will walk you through all this and more. In Part 1, The Intimacy Gap, we'll discuss what it means to acknowledge and own our intimacy gaps. In Part 2, The Frientimacy Triangle, we'll discuss the trifold approach to embracing and deepening frientimacy by enhancing the positivity, consistency, and vulnerability in all our friendships. In Part 3, Obstacles to Intimacy, we'll discuss the various stumbling blocks that can trip up our path to frientimacy. Then, in the conclusion, we'll cover how we can measure how far we've come by tracking relationship growth, courage growth, and love growth. If you have fewer confidants than you'd like and less support than you need, then I welcome you to join me in learning how you can close your intimacy gap and deepen your frientimacy. In so doing, you can improve your health and longevity, increase the joy you experience, add meaning to your life, and feel more loved. But you'll be doing even more than that. I think the world is dying without the intimacy it needs, In improving your own relationships, you can also help to heal the world. Every person who feels connected and valued is more likely to share the love, and the more love in the world, the happier we all will be. Join me. With huge love, Shasta. Part 1. The Intimacy Gap. Though many of us have friends and friendships we care about, we don't necessarily feel the depth of intimacy we'd like to feel. That yearning indicates we have an intimacy gap, which in these times of high productivity and low free time can result from any number of factors. In Chapter 1, we'll learn the ins and outs of acknowledging our intimacy gaps for what they are and what they aren't. The discussion continues in Chapter 2, where we'll learn about committing to closing our intimacy gaps, including any uncomfortable feelings that can emerge from self-exploration. We do this because we know that frientimacy doesn't just happen. We have to work at it. But we can also be gentle and patient with ourselves as we practice personal growth, acknowledging it will take time, just as will frientimacy itself. Let's get started. Chapter 1. Acknowledging our intimacy gaps. I was about to come face to face with one of my intimacy gaps. Arriving at the cafe to meet up with my girlfriends, all I felt was excitement. We hadn't kept up with our weekly Tuesday girls' nights over the holiday season, so we hugged like long-lost friends with a lot of catching up to do. In an attempt to encourage more intentional sharing and deeper connection, I suggested we go around the circle, saying one thing that we appreciate about our group friendship and one thing we want more of from the group. Since two of the most important actions in strengthening friendships are to affirm what we value and to let others know what kind of support would be meaningful to us, I thought this could be a perfect way to open our new year together. Everyone eagerly answered the question, and the sharing felt really meaningful. I was touched to hear each person share what she'd like more of from the group, including continued understanding for repeatedly talking about the same problem, asking for more encouragement during a particular rough patch, even getting together more often than we already did. As they talked, I was thinking ahead to what I would say. I decided to be truly honest and share that it would feel good to have them initiate asking about my life a bit more. I often did that for them, but didn't feel they asked about me quite as frequently, to the extent that I sometimes left our evenings feeling we'd spent more individual time on everyone else's life than on mine. But my turn to share never came. It was almost comical. Right before my turn, everyone got absorbed in stories prompted by the last answer. Like kids distracted by candy, the conversation ended up veering in another direction. I kept waiting for one of them to ask me to share. No one did. On the way home, I flip-flopped between licking my wounds and pretending I didn't really care. But there was no denying that I felt pity for myself, frustration toward them, and disappointment in how suddenly these friendships felt far from fulfilling. I blamed them. They were clearly selfish, caught up in their own lives and unable to fulfill my needs. A few other memories popped up with the confirmation to support that I was always the one who gives, who asks, who glues us together. I was the amazing friend, and they were the problem. The verdict felt good, so I pushed down the little voice of wisdom and responsibility that was gearing up to tone down my pity party. She would undoubtedly speak up soon, but I wasn't ready for her yet. Instead, I just sat in the disillusionment of the intimacy gap in which I found myself. What I wanted was the gut-warming feeling of being with amazing people who loved me. What I had was that gut-wrenching feeling of being neglected. There was a gap between the friendships I wanted and the friendships I had. What we have: dissatisfaction in our relationships.